Warning. This program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions. With your host, Berzerker, this is Unshackled Fury.
Phase 1 is nearly complete, with Phase 2 standing in the wings as the final stretch to the Dragon Isles rolls on. So welcome back to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions, Unshackled Fury. I'm your host, Berzerker. This is episode 116. And on today's show, I'm giving you old school raid segment realness, my impressions of the first forays into the Dragonflight prepatch, all the subscription and Twitch drop drama your mama can handle, and discussing the first 2 chapters of Dragonflight Legacies. But first, I want to say congratulations to our final contest winner. As you know, over the last couple of episodes, we've been running contests for beta keys and a couple of heroic Dragonflight keys, which I think are the best giveaways I've ever had by far and wide, and ran the first contest for some fun entries, yelling for the Horde or for the Alliance, old school kind of prank show style, and that might have been a bit of a bomb. I mean, if you just want to go reply versus reply, you know, we had a handful for the first one, and so for the second one, it was pretty straightforward. Had to follow Unshackled Fury on Twitter. Had to like the post that went out. Had to retweet the post that went out. And then you had to answer with the question that I left in the last episode. Who is the best heavy metal band of all time? And I think I got 124 replies. Something in that neighborhood. So the response rate on that was enormous. I guess it's not that big of a surprise. You know, you do worry about bot accounts and stuff like that, and I did see that people glommed on to at least one answer because there were way more Linkin Park entries than I think was warranted. And you know, I did say in the last episode there are no wrong answers. Linkin Park, I mean, it's... Well, I got to stand by my word, but that's stretching it. You know, heavy metal, you know, my eyes, right? I'm listening to Amon Amarth on a damn near daily basis, right? You can go old school with some of the, you know, Black Sabbath type deal. You can listen to anything in between, you know, the classic Metallicas. You can hit some, you know, Mastodons or Sepulturas or... Coheed and Cambria. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in there that you can pick. Linkin Park is stretching it. Now, so I did see a lot of people glomming onto that. But, random number generator decided who the winner was. And the winner, thankfully, was a real person available and was able to participate. So congratulations to @Viduality, who replied with, I throw my lot in with Metallica. Honestly, hard to choose between Metallica, Iron Maiden, and Black Sabbath. That's about as classic a lineup as it gets. Metallica, the Kings, right? Much derided, I think, in the latter years, but there's some pretty good stuff in there. Is it the same as Kill 'Em All? It is not. It is not, aka Metal Up Your Ass. Look that up. I like the later stuff. I'm not gonna lie. Death Magnetic, the first time I heard it, I had to like lay on the couch recovered. It fucked me up. It blew me away. I was pretty excited about that. Iron Maiden, one of the best stage shows you will ever see. Bruce Dickinson, lead singer, still can nail it. Huge soaring vocals, a fun stage show. That's a hell of a ticket. Get a chance, you should see it. They're still out touring. They might have just wrapped up their last tour. They're fantastic. And Black Sabbath, listen, they're the Godfathers. What are you going to do? Again, Ozzy, there's an argument to be made that Ozzy was carried by everybody else around him. I've seen it, I've heard it. But the contribution is undeniable. So, at the very least, congratulations to Adviduality. I hope you enjoy your copy of Dragonflight, your Heroic Edition, all the goodies coming in. And thank you as well to everyone else who followed the account, who participated, who listened to this stupid show to get the question, or at least pretended to. Because now we're going to see how many people actually hang on. Because there was definitely a big explosion of followers, and I saw the listener count do some things, and now we're going to find out. There's always a boom and bust cycle when it comes to content creation. And you know, I think that's a pretty good segue into this week's Let's Rage portion of the show. So let's get into it. Let's Rage. So this one's going to be a little bit of rage, maybe a little meditation on content creation. I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to handle this. This could have been a very classic tongue-in-cheek sort of thing, and I thought about going down that road, but you know, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, let's just crack this one open and be honest. Be honest about my thoughts on the situation, about content creation, and sort of where I stand on this whole issue. So you may have seen, and if you're listening to this show, there's a good chance you know who Preach is. Preach Gaming, well-known streamer, been around, big following, you know, dwarfs anything I've certainly ever done. If you recall, last year, Preach made a video, and there's a bunch of other stuff that went out about how they were no longer going to be covering World of Warcraft. And valid reasons, right? Valid reasons about, you know, problems with the company and not liking the direction of the game and all that sort of stuff. And I've said it many times, if you choose to walk away, then that is your right. I mean, no one's forcing you to be here. This is not, not your job, right? Tumultuous, I think, is one way you could describe that relationship. Some people say honest. Some people say other things. You know, there was condemnation. There was praise. There was a lot of shit talking. You know, it was all over the map for Preach, I think. But they decided that they were done. And big hue and cry. I mean, the video that talks about this has almost 750,000 views. And they were done off doing their own thing. Quite frankly, I haven't thought about Preach in a long, long time. Until, I want to say about 2 weeks ago. And there were some cryptic tweets coming out. And then there he was, sitting at the foot of the orc statue, the famous orc statue on the Blizzard campus. And he may have made a little video with Ian Hazakostas, where Ian even tongue-in-cheek said something like, "Didn't you quit?" And then more tweets came out where there's Preach on the Blizzard campus. And there he is talking to Ian. There he is talking to John Haidt, the guy leading Warcraft, along with Holly Longdale, the vice president and executive producer for World of Warcraft. There was a place you couldn't go, and then set him up with his own office, and now you're talking to a bunch of other people, and it was very clear that Preach was there in the Warcraft offices conducting interviews. Now, mind you, before this, Preach had on his stream had a whole big boo-hoo about how he didn't get alpha access, and even was saying fuck you to Blizzard. And, you know, got kicked out of the cool people's club and all this, you know, poor me shit. And now here you are on the campus. And I'll be honest. It was a little hard to take. As a content creator, when you see somebody leave and then throw a tantrum because they aren't being included anymore, and then not only get brought back into the fold, but get like the dream situation, jealousy runs rampant. I'll say number one, I'll admit my own jealousy of that, because who wouldn't love to get that kind of access? Number two, it's confusing as a content creator because, listen, I think a lot of people try to be good actors, and in the hopes of continuing to have access to the company, and I've talked about that many times, there's an upside and a downside to that. But it was a bit of a shock. And, you know, reactions kind of run across the board. Some people are like, man, I can't believe they did that. This guy doesn't deserve it. You should be doing that with like Hazel Nutty or somebody else who, you know, stuck around and been solid and that kind of thing. You have people that are like, hey, let's welcome them back because that's a big name and they're high on Warcraft again and that's good for the game. From the perspective of somebody who's done this now for a little while, and, you know, let's be real. If you're listening to this show, Lord knows I appreciate that you took the time to download the show, to listen to what I have to say, to give time out of your existence in this universe to listen to whatever stupid shit I have to say. I am eternally grateful to you. There are not a ton of you when it comes to the grand scheme of things. When you look at, you know, just sheer audience sizes, right? Like, no, there are not 600, 500,000 people listening to every episode. There are not even 5,000 people listening to every show. There are not even that many thousands of people listening to this show. So I speak from the perspective of a smaller content creator. The show has never been that big. I don't understand what it's like to have a team or run a merch store or do any of that kind of stuff. So I recognize that if you are going to grant access, this is like the front part of my brain, right? I recognize that if you are going to grant access to someone to do this large of a production, I am not the person to do that. I have no equipment. I don't, frankly, have the time. I could make the time. I didn't ask. Apparently, all Preach did was ask, and they let him come on, which I don't think it's as simple as that, but that's the explanation that was given. So, on the front half, it's like, okay, that makes sense. You know, Taliesin and Evitel, they're busy with their baby. And I don't think Asmongold leaves his house very often. You know, those are your other real big Warcraft ones, and there's others. So, on a personal level, right, you're like, yeah, I'm not the right choice. On the back half, though, it's like, man, there are plenty of others who deserve this, much more than somebody who left in such a dramatic fashion, most recently had a tantrum about not getting access anymore, and then later was granted that access. Right? And then, you know, here they come, tromping on a campus like it's no big deal, and they get the most access I've ever seen of any content creator ever. That is a bit hard to swallow. You know, the content creation cycle, to be quite frank, can eat you up. And I think that that's what happens with a lot of people. Years ago, when I first started doing this show, and I've mentioned this a few times, there's one episode that I have taken down. Is episode 10. If you go look, episode 10 is missing. And part of what I did in that episode was, this is back when Mick Montgomery was doing the starting zone. And he left and he had a big, you know, to do about it, and I made a lot of fun of it at the time. You know, it was a lot. It was emotional, and, you know, obviously it was a big deal for Mick, and, you know, since then, you know, Jason and Spencer have continued on and made it their own show and done their own thing. But one of the things that Mick talked about back then, and of course it couldn't have resonated with me at the time, I'd only been doing the show a few months, is how the cycle can really get to you, how it can eat you up. Because once you put something out, right, you almost have to put it out of your brain, because now you're working on the next thing. Now you're working on whatever's coming next. And you have to focus on that. And it's an eternal churn. One of the reasons why I take breaks when I do, typically over the summer and typically around the holidays, is because I need that break for myself to make sure as best as I can that doesn't happen. But it does. Does the luster sort of wane a little bit? Yeah. Do I feel the same about content creation now, 7 years in, as I once did? No. It's definitely changed. But there's always this hunger, right? When you're in it and you want to do it. There's always this hunger to be in the mix, right? And I've joked about the Alpha Club, the VIP club. I'm in the VIP club, and then it's the tables at the VIP club. This is they're in the executive lounge somewhere in the back with the owner. That's rarefied air. Where Preach is at, and content creators of that ilk, right? They're in another stratosphere. But there's always that desire to be in the mix. For us, we're always trying to get in with whoever's in charge to say, hey, looking for an opportunity to get this for my listeners, or get that, or to do this and this. Joining up with Warcraft Radio, now Bonus Roll Productions. That was one of the big things for me, is here's an organization that knows how to get in with things, knows how to bring things to their listeners. And that was one of the big things that attracted to me. And that's something that I think I've been able to bring you this year. I think 2022 has probably been the most successful year for Unshackled Fury for a variety of reasons, but one of those being access, being able to do the giveaways that I've done. But there's this constant churn and this need to I got to be in the mix. I got to be in the mix. I got to do this thing. How do I get in this? And when you see somebody who openly took off and then even recently had admittedly a little ego burst about it, and then was given so much, that is hard to take. On the other hand, I want Warcraft at the end of the day to be successful. I want the franchise to be successful. I want people to love the game. Would I love it back to the halcyon days of Wrath and 12 million subscribers? Hell yeah. Of course I would. If it takes things like Preach coming back or other people making content that gets people hooked into the game and saying, listen, Dragonflight is a new deal. Sounds like from some of the interviews that were done, even Blizzard acknowledges this is a new age. We're coming into a new time of our own. Is that a great thing? That's a great thing. And that is what we should be focusing on as a community. So as much as being a content creator who is trying to do as much as I can and feeling, a hint of jealousy, a strong dose of jealousy when I see things like that, I also recognize kind of where I am in terms of stature and where things need to go for the health of the game. And so while there is a back half of my brain that's going, God damn it, I can't believe they gave it to this guy. This is unbelievable. There is the front half going, it's good for the game. So if you're upset about it, take a deep breath, breathe it in, and it's all right. If people like Preacher coming back, that means we are in a good place, and we need to roll with that. So, with that being said, got impressions of the patch so far and everything else, so why don't we go ahead and jump into our news. So we're a couple weeks in on our new pre-expansion patch for Dragonflight. Phase 1. Phase 1 had our rollout. And the big things being in that first phase, new talent systems, among other things, and the new UI. Those are the two things I wanted to focus on here in this episode. And first I want to talk about the UI. I love the new UI system. I recognize it is not perfect. I recognize it has room to grow. And that it does not have the level of customization that some people need. That's fine. Recognize that. I do hope that they add some more bits and bobs as they go along. But for me, so far, I have had no problems, and I love it. I spent a considerable amount of time, once the patch hit, just sitting in Stormwind, enjoying the beautiful view in the background and the soft dulcet tones of Stormwind Keep, all the beautiful music that plays there. And I spent a bunch of time moving stuff around, blowing stuff up, shrinking stuff down, moving things around, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't. And honestly, I got to a place where my UI is pretty much what it was when I had LVUI. Now, is there some stuff that came with it that I need to add manually? Yes. You know, some damage meters and things like that. I will have to go back and I still have to add those in. But overall, very happy with the utility of the new UI system. You know, even just simple things like, you know, having one bag instead of a bunch of bags, you know, don't need an add-on for that. You know, being able to condense those buff bar, you know, we keep all your buffs or debuffs, you can condense all that stuff up and down. You can do that with your bags. Now, you can't customize the basic menu and some of those items, and I recognize that is probably something that they should continue to work on. But overall, I love what I was able to do. I was able to set up something that was really effective for me. And secondarily to that, and I got into the talent system. Made the talents the way I wanted to make them. There was a default one, and I checked that out. I was like, I think I'm going to make a couple tweaks here and there. Is it the most optimized setup for raiding? No, not that one. I went to Wowhead, and I made a second setup based on the one from Wowhead, just so I have it. You know, I did go take a look at that to see what they had, and that is one of the beautiful things about this new system is that you can set up different created, you know, you can create different setups and you can swap them out freely. Awesome. But I really felt a sense of freedom in terms of how I wanted to play, what I wanted my character to be able to do. So once I had my UI set up and once I had my talents set up the way that I liked, I did what no man should ever do. I jumped into LFR for several wings. In fact, I pretty much did all of Sanctum. And I tested it out. I tested out my UI, made a couple of tweaks, little adjustments here and there, based on kind of how that felt. Overall, you know, people were spamming damage meters like crazy, and you know, it's LFR, and I have raid gear on, so I should be at the top of things. But typically, every fight, I was in the top couple of people, and everything felt really smooth. Would I love wrenching impact back in the fold? You're damn right I would. Of course I would. But overall, I felt like the talent system, its freedom, and the way that I was able to put it together best for myself worked really cleanly, really well, and I'm very happy with it. Right now. Maybe it's the return of Odin's Fury. Maybe I'm just blinded by love, you know. I'm in the infatuation stage. And then maybe once that high wears off, I'll see it for all its warts. But for right now, I'm pretty happy with it. And we'll see how gear scales and rage and all that. But I like where we're at. We're in a beta. I think the beta is now a release candidate, so things are pretty locked in. But continue to give feedback wherever you are. So, you know. If you're not as happy with your setup as I am, sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Be a warrior. That's all I can tell you. There's lots of customization and utility there. No gladiator stance. Maybe that's next time. A little sword and board crusader style. I still think that would be fun to find a way and bring back, but I'll take it for now. So far, phase 1, I'm pretty happy. I like the way things look. I like the way things feel. But really, it's phase 2, which is coming next week. That's where the rubber meets the road. Because, first of all, we'll get the Drakthir, the Evokers, and that is going to, just change the game fundamentally. Raid compositions, Mythic Plus teams, all those considerations for what classes you bring. That's going to open up the game in an entirely new way, and just visually, it's going to be pretty wild to see these dragons flying everywhere and blowing up stuff on the ground and going nuts, and it's going to feel very alive. I hope. I think that's my hope, is it's going to feel very alive. All these Drakthir coming in. We'll have access to their new starting zone, the Forbidden Reach, which is going to provide more context for the Legacies cinematics that I'm going to talk about later. So if you want to understand more of what's going on with Nose Dormu and Emerthal, I would check that out. We also get that new dungeon, Oldemon Legacy of Tyr, and we find out Odin's been up to some shit, and I'm going to talk about that. I think I was going to talk about it on this episode. I'm going to talk about it on the next episode, because then it'll actually be out, and we can talk about that. And Primal Storms, those Primal Storms talked about last time, that'll be dropping some essences that you can turn in for gear, and there's some other rare drops. All of that happens next week on the 15th. To me, that's when it gets real. Really real. And we'll find out how Evokers kind of play to the masses. The customization, I think, will be a topic of conversation once again, because once more people have their hands on it, my God, this really is comprehensive in a way. This isn't just, 10 faces and a hairstyle. It's almost overwhelming in a way. Maybe there's some guides out there. People put together some hey, if you want your dragon to look like so-and-so, this famous dragon, you can do this. Like we used to do, those of us that played the old wrestling games, and they didn't have, like Hulk Hogan in it, but you could make a guy that looked like Hulk Hogan and had all his moves. Maybe they'll do something like that. You can create a custom celebrity dragon of your choice, or Drakthir of your choice. So more to come next week. I think it's going to be really fun. But in the meantime, we have got some drama, as usual, not just streamers coming back into the fold. One of the things that I'd mentioned back on the last episode is that there were going to be Twitch drops related to the release of Dragonflight, and so I theorized, maybe a pet, maybe a mount, maybe transmog, something, who knows. Now we know what they are, and I'm not sure I'm a fan. Of how we're rolling this out, but not for the reasons that some other people seem to really be upset. So there are going to be 3 drop times, and then 1/4 sort of pseudo drop, which is going to require some other work. So they're giving away, as it turns out, a dragon kite. This is a pet, a Feldrake mount, and a perpetual purple firework, along with this, what I admit, it is very adorable, an Ichabod pet. This looks like a little weird golem that you see outside of Undercity during the Hallow's End stuff. So here's how this is going to work. So from November 15th to November 18th, you have to watch 4 hours of somebody streaming World of Warcraft content in order to receive your Dragon Kite pet. So official dates, November 15th from 3 p.m. Pacific time to November 18th, midnight, November 18th. So you have a few days you'll have to watch at least 4 hours of Dragonflight content, they say, on a channel that has the Twitch drop active. And there's, talking about content creation churn, whole bunch of machinations going on with all the streamers and everybody freaking out about who's got access and who doesn't and who's approved and who isn't. And oh my God, you guys, it's it's hilarious. It's insane and it's hilarious all at the same time. But these should be really easy. As far as I know, like, these ones should be pretty easy, where a lot of folks are going to be able to participate in this. A lot of streamers are going to be able to participate in this. And I'm sure that people that are participating will put it on their socials, will put it everywhere else. But the first drop, the kite pet, the kite pets, the dragon kite pet, will be November 15th to November 18th. So 4 hours. You have to watch 4 hours, although I think what I've heard is that people just put it on and walk away, and they just stream it for 4 hours. It doesn't matter. They put it on a tab. They're not watching or something. But at any rate, that's the date for that one. The big one, and the one that's probably the source of the most controversy, November 28th, that's Dragonflight launch. November 28th at 3 p.m. to December 1st at midnight. So, again, only a couple of days. Another 4 hours of Dragonflight content you have to watch on Twitch on a channel that has the drop active, and you will receive a Feldrake mount. Now, a Feldrake may or may not sound familiar to you as a mount, but this mount is actually been around. It's been around for a long time. This was a mount from the old trading card game. Some of you may or may not remember, but in eons past, World of Warcraft had a trading card game. But the thing that it was really known for is that there were items, in-game items, that would randomly be dispersed throughout these packs. So, it's like any other card game where there's packs and you're breaking them open and looking for rare cards or super great stuff. There were some amazing drops in those. Maybe the most famous of all being the Swift Spectral Tiger mount, which is very rare and nowadays I think sells for like $10,000. It's insane. But that was one of the big reasons why. Hell, I even bought a bunch of packs and looked for stuff, and I think the only thing I ever got was a Papa Hummel's biscuit or something that made your pet grow. I must have spent, I don't know, $100 to $200. Rommel, you have to check me on this. Over time, but I bought a lot of those cards and I did not get a lot out of them. But that was one of the big ones, and it recently sold for as much as $3,000 or more, this Feldrake mount online. And so now you have a bunch of people going, holy shit, people have spent thousands of dollars on this mount, or maybe you're trying to unload one, or you're one of these people who hawked one of these cards, I don't know. But now they're giving it away, essentially for 4 hours of your time. Some would argue that's for free, but listen, time is money, friend. So for 4 hours, November 28th, from the launch of Dragonflight until midnight, essentially, December 1st, you just have to watch 4 hours, and you get a very rare mount that's worth quite a bit of money. Feldrake mount. And it's a cool looking mount. Very Legion-esque, but very cool. And so that's what you have to do for that. For the Perpetual Purple Firework, say that 10 times fast, December 13th to December 28th. That's a big window for this one. Again, only 4 hours on select channels, right? On people that actually have the Twitch drop active for World of Warcraft. The other fourth thing is that from the launch of Dragonflight, November 28th, 3 p.m., until December 12th, if you gift an, quote, eligible creator, end quote, if you gift an eligible creator 2 Twitch subscriptions, you will get this Ichabod Harvest Golem pet. So those are your Twitch drops. Now, is it cool that they're giving away something super rare in its amount? Yes, that is obviously, that's great. And sucks to be the people who just paid $3,000 for that. But if you have $3,000 to drop on a mount in World of Warcraft, I don't know. You probably aren't that worried about money, but then again, maybe you've been saving up, working all summer for it, and now you're like, oh, fuck. Yeah, that would suck. But I am not a fan of requiring Twitch viewing for that many hours. I don't like that they do it for Overwatch. I get it. That's how it works, right? I do not like this way of doing things. I know this is part of the modern era and modern Blizzard, modern Warcraft, and everything else. But maybe I'm too old. Maybe I'm too old. But I don't have 4 hours to just throw this on with nothing else to do. I just don't. I mean, I'll give you an example. Today, got up, got ready for groceries, and helped my wife make a list, do a thing, all that stuff. She had to go to the store while I had a meeting this morning with Bonus Roll Productions. And then I jumped on, and I'm doing this. And after this, I'm going off to my in-laws. I got to do stuff over there. And then by the time I get back, I don't know, we're probably watching some show tonight, and we're going to bed. You know, that typical Sunday. Yesterday, you know, busy all day doing shit. And then weekdays, you know, you're working, doing the business. So finding 4 hours of time just to, you know, piss away, not easy to do. And I know it's not easy for a lot of people. Also, it's tough for smaller streamers to carve out that time as well, because again, I can't imagine having to carve out 4 hours of my time for streaming or whatever else when you got other stuff going on just to be able to provide this to your viewers or whoever else. So recognizing that this is the way of business now, I still am not a fan of it. Will I do it? Of course I'm going to do it. Of course I'm going to find a way to do it. If I just got to put it on somewhere, if I got to put it on my phone and throw it in a corner somewhere while I'm busy working on shit, you know, in my yard or around the house or whatever, then I guess that's what I'm going to do, right? Because FOMO's a motherfucker and I don't want to, you know, not have cool stuff. But I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to do that. But it could also be argued that getting a rare mount should be worth some amount of your time. So that's how it's being handled. There's drama about this being a Twitch drop in this sort of way, with the hours required on these events, with the mount, with who is a select or is an eligible creator. Some of the stuff has been very nebulous, even for content creators. Like I said, people are not up in arms, but very confused and wanting to know who qualifies. And it's probably going to be some of the bigger ones and not some of the smaller ones. So keep your eyes out. This is not really my wheelhouse. I'm a podcaster, but if I see somebody like, you know, if Navox is streaming, go watch Navox. There you go. Nav will probably be streaming. So if you see Nav out there and he's leveling and he's doing his thing, jump at Nav's channel. That's a good channel. He's always good for an entertaining leveling session or whatever else. And he's been out there. So that'll be the one plug. Go see Brother Navo. He'll hook you up. Aside from this one, the other bit of loot, whatever related news, is the new 12-month subscription for World of Warcraft and all of the assorted goodies that are coming along with it. And this one came pretty much right out of the blue. I don't think anybody was expecting Warcraft to announce a 12-month subscription package, and I'm sure there's business reasons why they're doing it now, right before there's an expansion launching, and it hooks in, you know, a certain amount of numbers and figures and gives a boost before the year end. I haven't talked about the business end of Blizzard in a while, and I got to get back to that. But this, you know, clearly they're doing this not just because they think it's a cool thing for the gamers out there, but there is some pretty cool stuff in here. So for 1 year, a 12-month subscription, you get a Festering Emerald Drake mount in Wrath of the Lich King Classic, the Gargantuan Gurlock mount in World of Warcraft, Telix the Stormhorn mount in World of Warcraft, and a couple of items that are related to the 6-month sub. So it looks like there's a mount and a pet that have yet to be announced. Looks like some sort of rabbit-related situation based on the silhouette. Those will be coming. Somebody's guess here is it's based on the Lunar New Year. Cool. So, big expense. 12 months. Not something that we have seen in a long time. But we have seen it before. And I know there was some question about this. Previously, we have seen this, although it has been a very long time. This is back when Diablo 3 was releasing. So we're talking, 2011. I want to say 2011, 2012. So it's 10 plus years ago. For a 12-month subscription, the annual pass, you got the Tyrael Charger, and you got Diablo 3, I think, for free. That's how this worked. They only did it the 1 year, and we haven't seen it since. And it looks like, again, this is probably only going to be for a limited time, because in the posting for this, the official post, it says that the promotion is only valid through January 15th of 2023. So it looks like it's a small window, a limited time. Maybe it's to test and see how many people are actually doing that. In full disclosure, I did do it. My 6-month sub was almost up. So I decided, you know what? Now's the time. I'll jump in. I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that. Knock it out a year at a time. Why not? Let's do it. I get some goodies. Let's roll. Personally, I don't have a huge issue with it. A minor nitpick being is that I would have hoped that it would have been a little bit more of a discount doing 12 months over 6 months, right? Because that's always sort of how they hook you in. Because 1 month of Warcraft is still $15. 3 months is $14 a month. And 6 months is $13 a month. So it's a little bit less the longer you go. But the price per month breakdown is the same 6 month versus 24 month. So a 12 month. So a 12-month subscription is $155. It ain't cheap, and the 6-month sub is just half of that. It's a little under 78. So obviously, catering towards those who have more money to spend, and I am fortunate enough to be in that category. Full disclosure here, I did, like I said, I did buy that. But what's kind of interesting about this is that the Gerlach mount, the gargantuan Gerlach mount, has actually been around for quite a bit of time, and maybe this is a situation where they're trying to recover a sunk cost, where that mount, the giant Murloc, this huge freaking thing that looks like it should have been in Warlords, it was actually supposed to be a BlizzCon mount. So, again, for those of us that have seen BlizzCons and have either been to them or watched the digital streams or on all the different ways that they've done over the years, there's usually some sort of giveaway or pet or mount or something. And way back last year, this mount was data mined. Didn't know what it was, but it had a big BlizzCon flag on the back of it, which has now been removed. So this mount has been around for a while, and it was probably tied towards something where, nothing's free. They would have charged people for the access to the BlizzCon line or, whatever it was, and then you get these digital goodies, and one of them was going to be this mount. So this mount has been sitting around, this giant gargantuan Gerlach mount, has been sitting around for a long time, and now only finally are they able to tie it to something to get it out. So I did ride around in it. It is pretty freaking cool to go stomping around on a giant Murloc. Murlocs have not been my favorite creatures in Warcraft, but I do like this one. It's pretty badass. He's, just stomping around, big knuckle style. I love it. So, will it be my main mount? No, it won't be my main mount. I'll probably tromp around in some of the Dragon Isles with it, but for now, pretty cool. The Telix the Stormhorn is a giant beetle. You know how I feel about beetles. I'm never gonna touch that. I'll be honest. I paid for that, and I don't want it. You take it back. I don't like those beetles, man. They freak me out. I don't know, something about them. But overall, I don't have intrinsically any issue with this. If this is something that you want to buy and spend your money on, that's up to you. You know, it's not a power gain. It doesn't hurt anybody, at least outright. But it does feel a little shameless sometimes. You're like, here's a year. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot to ask people to pony up. But overall, if you want money, you know, vote with your pocketbooks, folks. That's the name of the game. Now, perhaps dramatic in a different way. Since the last time I was here, we've had 2 chapters of the Dragonflight Legacies cinematics released. The first one focused primarily on the origin of the aspects, at least this version that Nosdormu is telling a Drakthir by the name of Emberthal. Emberthal is a character, as I mentioned earlier in the show, why you might want to play through the Drakthir starting zone. You will meet Emberthal. You will find out who Emberthal is and why they are important. But for the purposes of these cinematics, that's who Nosdormu is talking to. Clearly, they have just woken up from this confinement, as Nosdormu says, for the Drakthir. And Emberthal is kind of coming to and being led through these halls, these ancient underground halls by Nosdormu, as Nosdormu tells the origin story, or at least a version of it, about how they were the proto-dragons, and then there was Galakron, this giant, enormous dragon that was eating all the other dragons and threatened to wipe them all out. The 5 dragons that became the aspects banded together, defeated Galakron. Galakron's carcass or bones you can actually see in Dragonblight, the big giant dragon that's in the ground there. The Titan, I think it's Tyr, empowers the 5 dragons, makes them the aspects, and off we go. In the second cinematic that we saw, that was more focused on the fall of Neltharion, who, as we all know, became Deathwing, and what happened there, and focusing a lot on the sort of blindness, even willingly, that the aspects had in regards to Neltharion's turn. Now, there's other ancillary material that you can read, you know, the prior novels, War of the Ancients, like all this stuff that provides much more detailed background. But for me, and I even put this out on Twitter, it's really fun to see the visualization of huge lore moments that we may have only heard about in other ways or seen in other media, but to see it here represented, at least a version of it, always successful in my mind. We love these things. We come to rely on them almost now, you know, going back to Warlords, you know, when they started talking about the individuals there. Legion, we had Illidan in BFA, we had Jaina and the super successful, you know, Daughter of the Sea that came out of all of that. And we had, what was it, with Sylvanas and the Windrunner sisters, all that stuff that we've had in the past. Very successful. Everybody loves them. They're always fantastic. And the question I had coming into these was, it's called Dragonflight Legacies, so clearly it's telling a history of the dragons, at least on Azeroth as we know them. I had thought maybe they were going to go by flight. Maybe this is going to be more chronological, and it's kind of the major moments. Once you get to Cataclysm, which is where the second one ends, I'm curious, are we going to talk about Ysera and the death of Ysera? Are we going to talk about maybe some of the stuff that happened in Shadowlands? You know, where does it go from here? Not really sure. The big elephant in the room being that we have always known that Nosdormu, not always, but for the majority of Warcraft's existence, we have known that Nosdormu is destined to become Murazond, the infinite dragonflight, messing up the time ways, going nuts, right? Is this Murazond? Is this not really Nosdormu? There are theories out there talking about some of the hints that are playing out in these cinematics so far, trying to indicate, you know, what's really happening. Looking at the shadows, the way that the use of shadow plays out in these, where in the second cinematic, when the fall of Neltharion, the turn of Neltharion is referenced, and you see the little shadowy old god tentacles, kind of like when you see those Dormu pull up to the opening to this cave, right? Shadow. Is this another not old god expansion? Maybe shaping up to be that way. Nosdormu is referencing some sort of ancient threat. Could it be the one that's more local, something that we're going to deal with in Vault of the Incarnates, the first raid? It's possible. But the old god hints continue to get bigger. There are others. I will touch on them when I feel that they are more appropriate. But that could be a direction that we're heading, or it could just be some fun stuff that Blizzard is throwing out there. But big questions remain right now. Is Nosdormu, at least at the very, very end of the last cinematic, indicates that there's something that he hasn't seen, a moment that he has been blind to, something only Emberthal can help them see. So with the next one coming out, probably only hours after this episode drops, we should have a better sense of what's going on. I don't know even now how many of these we're actually getting. Plotting out how many weeks we have until the expansion launch, I would assume that we have at least 2 more. Get to 4, get to 5. That seems to be where it might be appropriate. But where are we going? What does Nosdormu need from Emberthal? The Drakthir has been locked away for thousands of years. Has no idea that Neltharion turned into Deathwing. Has no knowledge of these Drakthir. They're almost innocents in this way. But they're warriors. They make that very clear. They're an army. They're badasses. So where does that go? Don't know. But I'm excited to find out. I like how these have been handled so far. Of course, are people reading into them too much? Maybe. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm just a simpler person. I just watch it and go, okay. When I watch a lot of shows with my wife and she's figuring shit out and mysteries and things like that, I'm like, I don't know. A guy did a thing. I'm like, no. But look at this and look at this and look at this. I'm like, I didn't see any of that. And then I forget about it. I just put it out of my mind. So if you are interested in chasing down those theories, I know that there are articles and videos and other stuff out there where people are really diving deep into maybe the symbolism of what we're seeing. But for right now, I see the wounded Nosdormu trying to figure something out. I'm still not clear how it is that the aspects no longer have their power, but Nosdormu is like doing some timey-wimey stuff. Maybe that's explained, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just, the last little flicker of that power that remains. But I feel like somewhere over the course of this expansion, like the Dragonflight aspects are going to be re-empowered or something's going to happen. I don't know. It just feels too triumphant to just burn them all. But we'll see. We'll find out. So, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, enjoying the deep dive history so far by Nosdormu, or at least some version of that history. I encourage you, as I did in the last episode, to watch all of the various pieces of information and videos and all the stuff that's being put out by all the great content creators out there to help fill in all of these gaps in the lore, because I do feel it's going to be essential going forward that you at least have a working knowledge of the flights, of their history, of some of these major events. Clearly, they're trying to force feed you this stuff with what happened with Neltharion, how the aspects came to be. Like they desperately need you to know this. So anything that you know around that, it's really only going to help flesh out your understanding and your enjoyment as we go through the expansion. But good stuff so far, and looking forward to Chapter 3. So just in case you hadn't noticed, the World of Warcraft anniversary event is live. This is Warcraft's 18th anniversary. 18th anniversary. It's getting scary, folks. I see that big 2-0 number coming in a couple of years. Probably going to be timed for about the next expansion after this one. And oh boy, that is scary. That's scary to think about. But that is live. right now, November 6th, as I record, through November 27th. So it's a nice long event. It's going to be great. The big thing out of this, though, and that's what's important right now, is that the celebration package that you get, you open that up, that'll reward you. It has a little thing in there. You get an 18% experience and rep buff. So you put that together with everything else that's going on right now to either buff your gains or to reduce the level of XP you need. Even my lazy alt leveling ass might even get a chance to get a few up with that, because that is it's going to be blazingly fast. I hope so. But that is a huge buff to have right now, essentially until the launch of Dragonflight. It's November 27th, that's the day before. So you have from now until then to have these great gains, along with, you know, if you want to do I think there's a Dark Moon Fair thing. I don't know. I feel like that only lasts an hour or something like that. And there's some other ones that will be excellent for getting those alts up and ready. They're also going to have some bosses out there once again that you can kill for some loot. There is the Doomwalker. Everybody loves the Doomwalker, as well as Lord Kazakh, Azergos, and the Dragon of Nightmare. And they're going to drop some gear. It is level 272 gear, so that's pretty good stuff. And there's also a mount, an Illidari Doomhawk, and a toy, the Doomwalker trophy stand, which you can get as drops from those. So that's live right now. Jump in that alt, Berzerker. Jump in that DK and that Paladin. Get them out there. I'm telling myself this for later when I listen back to this. Go, bro. Get shit in. Do your thing. And I don't know if it's tied to it, but there is a Blizzard Gear Fest going on. They called it Week 1 just this past week, and they have some art and some pins if you're into that. Some other stuff, new content coming out. They're calling this Week 1, so that means I assume that there's going to be a Week 2 or 3 or however long. Keep your eyes open if you're looking for some stuff. If you're feeling like, you know what, I'm in a spot where I have some gifts I want to give, and I know some people that would like this stuff, or you're filling out your collection of pins or those kinds of things. Now's a good time. The key art, so they have Blizzard Gear Fest key art. Maybe it was always intended to be for this event. It feels a little weird that they would have created key art for a merch sale. I mean, that doesn't feel right. But it looks like BlizzCon art. Like, this looks like something that should have been BlizzCon art. It's got Tyrael from Diablo right front and center. You've got Sojourn representing Overwatch. You've got Jaina and some cards representing Hearthstone. You've got Elite Torn Chieftains for Heroes of the Storm. You've got Kerrigan and some Zerg for StarCraft. And you've got, of all people, the Jailer up top for World of Warcraft. It's cool. Don't get me wrong. It looks super cool. And that would have made a great BlizzCon key art. Maybe they're repurposing that here, sort of like we saw with the Gurlock, things that they had designed for previous BlizzCon stuff. They're just having to repackage and recycle. Hey, listen, you spent the time, and the designer spent the time working on it. Don't bury it. Might as well use it. It's good stuff. So, I still haven't seen my collector's edition of Dragonflight come through. I will mention, speaking of gear, I did buy that some time ago. I heard rumors that they were going to be coming out early, hopefully prior to the 15th, so I can try out a Drakthir myself. But I have also heard from other people who did buy their CE early. They have not seen them yet. So hopefully this Gear Fest will include some of those and get a few of those out. I say that selfishly. So we'll keep our eye out. But if there's anything that you're looking to get, that Gear Fest is up. We've got an anniversary going. So, you know, once again, October, November, December, this is the time of year for Warcraft, for Blizzard. And if you're looking for gear, now is the time to get it. And speaking of, there's the last couple things before I go. Exploring Azeroth Northrend. This is something that, you know, I'm very excited about because Northrend is my jam. Lich King, right? Wrath of the Lich King. I feel like you can just always go back to it. I know Hearthstone just put out an expansion as well. I feel like you can always go back to the Lich King and Northrend when you need a save. It's like, I need a sure bet. Let's go back to Northrend. Let's dig up the Lich King one more time. When they do the movie eventually, when they do the movie and Henry Cavill steps out and he's Arthas and I get chubbed. I mean, when I get really excited, that'll be like the final form of them digging up this story. But Exploring Azeroth, Northrend is a book, talked about this many months ago, that is finally coming out next week on November 15th. And there are some preview pages that are now out, and you can see one about the Argent Vanguard and the Argent Tournament Grounds, which, weren't the most popular, but I thought it was fun. Howling Fjord has a beautiful 2-page spread to start. They also have one about Frostblade Peak, Niflvar, and one for Zuldrak. You should also know that within the book, one of the kind of fun things that makes it feel alive is it's like a journal that somebody carried around. And so you'll see notes that are from Muradin, Brand, and Magni, a couple of the dwarves of great fame. So you'll see their notes in the margins. And it's items like this, merch aside, right? It's things like this, the books in particular, that make me really invested in what we're doing. It's what, for me, makes this franchise in particular so great. Because it helps fill in those gaps. It makes it feel alive. It makes you feel like this is a real place that you could go to, and that people have spent the time to flesh it out in such a way. And it can be a trap sometimes where people are like, oh, what about this one little thing? Star Wars community is famous for this. Like, oh, the one little thing in the corner over there, that's got to have a name. It's not that. We're not talking about that level of detail, but filling in the people, places, and things that are important in this place where we spend so much time, it makes it feel more alive. And I love it. And I embrace it with both arms. And I am undoubtedly going to enjoy this book. So I'm looking very much forward to next week when I have it in hand. And, of course, I'll have a review and let all of you know what I think of it once I have it. But if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. Exploring Azeroth, Northrend. It's out there. It's on Amazon. And you can pick up a copy of your own. Meanwhile, the untitled Dragonflight prequel novel is nowhere to be seen. I have no idea where that is. I checked my Amazon listing for that recently, and there is no activity. So, not sure what's happening with that. They have some other stuff that is going to release later in the year. I imagine these are tied around patch cycles or something. There's a reason that they want more information to be told about the story at a later date. But that prequel novel, still in the wind. Don't know what it is. But for now, Exploring Azeroth, Northrend. Get out there. Enjoy it. And I'm pretty sure that I will. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode. My thanks to all of you for listening. And remember, you can always follow me and the show on Twitter at Berzerker Rage and Unshackled_Fury. You can also join our Discord, links for which are in the profile of the show on Twitter and on our Bonus Roll Productions page. Feel free to contact the show with your questions, comments, or otherwise through any of those resources or on shackledfury.com. And you can find this show wherever you get your podcasts. So once again, thank you for listening. Remember to keep your swords wet and your banners high. And we'll see you next time. Farewell.